Tom, who inspires and motivates you the most?
Who inspires and motivates me the most? Well, that's interesting, because if you asked me yesterday, the answer would be different. Today, believe it or not, I spent 2 hours in the Winston Churchill Museum, and I sat there and I just listened to what this guy did, and I walked away thinking to myself, man, what a legend. So the reality is, every day, whether it's walking into a museum, whether it's reading a book, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's sitting at a palliative care unit, which I had to recently sit in. My younger brother passed away, 43 years of age, and watching the palliative care nurse sit there and basically be in my brother's corner. Every day I see people that totally blow my mind away with how kind, how strong, how much leadership they had. So, Chris, I mean, I'd love to go off and say to you, oh, you know, Anthony Robbins or this and that. But the truth is, people that inspire me are people that's their behaviour really knocked me off the feet. I saw something that I just thought to myself. Now, probably the most inspirational person I've seen recently. I mean, recently I've been in treatment myself, right? And fortunately, it's going to end up being positive. But I sat there, and one of the volunteers, I'll tell you a quick story. She lost her child to cancer. 6 months later, her other child committed suicide, suffered from schizophrenia. Shortly after that, her husband left her. It was just too much for him. And there was this lady at my chemo that would come around with cake she'd made, handing it out. And when a fellow patient told me her story, I mean, Chris, we're talking about one of these events alone, you would turn around and say, that would be totally overwhelming. Let's talk about burying your son, the first one with cancer. But then to have a second one commit suicide, then to have a husband that had been with you for 20 years to leave you, and for this woman to still bake a cake, come into the chemo ward and serve it with with a smile, that to me is like, that's inspirational. That says to me that no matter how dark your life is, that you can make it bearable, right? And you don't have to sit in your room saying that, you know, I want to kill myself. And, you know, stories like that.
You had cancer 5, 6, 7 years ago, and you've just said that you got it a second time. What have you learned from that?
I mean, for the record, I'm going to be in chemo next week. So I'm actually in treatment at the moment. And it's this is my, I've had 5 months of chemo. My 6th month of chemo is Tuesday, Wednesday next week.
You don't mind us talking about this, do you?
I don't mind, because it's the truth. And when you can accept the truth, life's a lot easier, you know. Nothing to be ashamed of.
Because you said in the past that you had cancer, but cancer didn't have me.
Yeah, and that view's changed a little bit as well, because when you first listen to that comment, I had cancer, but cancer didn't have me, suggests that it's all about your ability to fight it. I do think that some people that die from cancer didn't want to die. I think that there's a 6-year-old kid that gets leukemia, that fights it, that dies. I think there's a 37-year-old woman that gets breast cancer that wants to live for her children but dies. So I don't think that having the will and the fight is enough. I have a belief. The bullet that's going to kill you has already been fired. I believe that everyone's going to die. Some people die at 7, some people die at 17, some people die at 27, some people die at 77. But for me, cancer has been a gift that's been badly wrapped. Cancer is not my fault, but it's become my problem. But thankfully, it appears that technology and medicine has sped up at a faster speed than my illness, and it's highly treatable, which it wasn't in 2006. So 2006, when I first got diagnosed, the statistics were dreadful. In 2019, between immunotherapy, CAR T-cell therapy, and various new methodologies that oncologists use, means that the survival rates have sort of quadrupled. Maybe they haven't quadrupled, but what I'm getting at is it's a lot higher. So what are some of the things that I've learned? Number one, some of the best gifts in life come badly wrapped. Why? Because when you get an illness that causes you to face your mortality at a young age, it helps you not waste your time. Because when you
What other things, less important things than your health?
Oh, mate, like seriously, do you honestly think that when I fly back to Sydney on Friday and I hear at the airline, ladies and gentlemen, flight QF9 has been delayed by 2 hours, do you honestly think that's going to hit my radar screen as a problem, right? When you come to life a second time, you look at life with different eyes.
Because agents just worry about Brexit, the market. They shouldn't be worried about these things, should they?
Look,
Should people be aware of these
Look,
things?
Brexit's not your problem. Your problem is your lack of discipline. Your problem is the lack of clarity. Your problem is that you don't have a prospecting plan. Your problem is you don't have a listing presentation that devastates your competitors. Brexit is not your problem, because the minute that you say Brexit's your problem, you're outsourcing your responsibility to another person. And you know what? Wherever I see someone outsourcing responsibility lies the opportunity.
And is that what you've learned with regard to having cancer and getting through it, that it's all about self-awareness, self-accountability and taking personal responsibility? Because one of the lines I love that you say is when someone came up to you at the airport and says, "Tom, hope you don't mind me saying," you turned around and said, "Actually, I don't give a flying F."
Yeah,
Which is wonderful, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, well, Chris, like at the end of the day, everyone's going to have a view and an opinion, but if you got 1,000 haters but 10,000 likers, you stick with your strategy, right? So, like for me, the biggest thing with illness that I've learned and that helps me in life is that falling down is not an option. Staying down is. Mike Tyson, in one of his last fights, gets punched in the face, gets knocked out, has a media journalist recording him saying, Mike, what happened? You were in the best condition of your life. Mentally, physically, you were heads on to win this fight. What happened? What was your plan? And Mike Tyson, Chris, sits there. He goes, what? He goes, Mike, what was your plan today? And Mike goes, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. And I think what I've learned is that if you haven't been punched in the face yet, it's coming.
There's a lot of agents out there that have been in the good times since 2011, 12. They don't know the bad times, do they?
They don't know the bad times because they've been sitting in a shop with lots of lollipops and lots of sweets everywhere, and all of a sudden there's none left.
Thank you, Tom.